Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique, and I am so excited about today's video. So September was the release of the Peachy and Flynn Peachy Palette. So it was a collaboration I did with Peachy Olive Glitters to release some absolutely beautiful colors that kind of go with the Flynn Sisters Boutique vibe and colors. And I'm just obsessed with what she came up with. All of these colors are absolutely beautiful. And in this video, I would love to show you how I would use some of these in a fantastic design. I hope you guys love it. You're gonna see all the products that you see listed and linked down below in the description box. You might even find some discount codes for you there as well. So that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so as usual, we're starting with a fully prepped and sanded cup today. If you're having trouble figuring out how to prep your stainless steel tumblers, I will link a video down below that I think you'll find really helpful. And we are going to do a vinyl wrap on this tumbler today. I am using my Flynn Sisters vinyl line from Auntie Tay. I will have a link on where you can find this vinyl down below, as well as a discount code. And I kind of just held the vinyl against the width of my cup to get a good idea of the, like the height that I'll need from that vinyl. And I sort of made a dent in the vinyl to mark where I needed to cut. Okay, make sure it's nice and straight and squared up with your paper trimmer before you slice it. And then I'm just going to peel back like 1 inch of the paper backing from my vinyl here and kind of fold it down. That way I have one little strip of exposed vinyl there to anchor it while we make sure everything's nice and straight and lined up before we commit to applying the whole sheet. All right, so we're just going to smooth that out really well and then do kind of a rough draft on how this is going to wrap around. You want to position this so that it lines up perfectly straight with your top rim. And it's okay to leave a bit of that top rim exposed because we are going to glitter the top and bottom of this tumbler later. So don't worry if it doesn't span like the whole width. Same thing with the bottom there too. It's okay if it doesn't go all the way down and around. This is a 30-ounce skinny straight, so there's no taper to this tumbler, so it makes wrapping it with vinyl a whole lot easier. I've got my sharp craft knife handy in case you need to pop any bubbles along the way, and I've got my little vinyl squeegee there with a felt end to it, and I'm just going to use that to help me smooth my vinyl down around my cup, working pretty slowly here, okay? Take your time, and you're going to use that vinyl scraper to push the paper backing off of the vinyl. You don't want to be taking that paper backing off yourself, okay? You want to leave that paper backing on the vinyl for as long as you can while you're smoothing everything out. You can kind of see what I mean. I'm letting that vinyl scraper be what pushes the paper backing off. If I notice any large bubbles along the way that I'm not able to squeegee out towards my opening there, I'll just pop it really quick as I see them with my craft knife and then smooth it out. Once we get all the way wrapped around, you're going to notice that there will be like a little bit of an overlap, and that's okay. We're going to trim that off. But to trim it off, we want to make sure that we trim it at a nice straight line so the seam looks somewhat decent. Obviously, we can't match up this pattern perfectly, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is once we've got the overlap here, I'm going to press my nail along the crease that's created with the overlap so I can get an idea of where they meet together. And then I will use a strip of thin masking tape. I'll have a link down below where you can find this. It's just a thin piece of tape. I'm going to run right along that seam that I can see along the crease. We want to just put it right up against it. Not right along it, but right up against it so that we're left with like a 1/16 of an inch overlap from the top to the bottom. And we're going to use that masking tape line as a guide for where we're going to run our craft knife against to trim off that excess. So we end up with a really nice clean looking seam and we don't accidentally pull up pieces that we're not supposed to, which is something that I kind of have struggled with in the past. And this is kind of what I've put together to combat my issues with that. Okay, I've got lots of vinyl wrap tutorials on my channel. I will link some of my favorites down below. I know that a lot of people struggle with vinyl wraps, but really it's just taking your time, being patient with it. The vinyl scraper really does help a lot, and leaving that paper backing on for as long as you can, just smoothing down little by little, all right? So once we're done with our vinyl wrap, I'm going to be applying my glitter. I'm using epoxy as my adhesive for my glitter today. And I'm going to be using less than 1 milliliter of epoxy on my tumbler here, okay? So usually what I'll do is I'll mix up 5 milliliters of epoxy and just use less than 1 milliliter per tumbler. Try to have a couple lined up ready to go so you're not wasting epoxy, okay? But very, 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 very thin layer here, okay? Once we've got that all smoothed out, we're ready to apply our glitter. If you find that you see lines in your glitter from your epoxy method glitter application, you might want to try letting your epoxy sit on your tumbler for a few minutes after you apply it before you put the glitter on so that any lines can smooth out. What we're going to be doing here today is kind of like a double, like edge to edge double ombre. So we're going to use 2 colors ombreed at either end of our tumbler. I'm going to start with Situation. This was my second favorite color from the palette. It's really hard to explain. It's like you have shades of mauve, you have shades of burgundy and maroon and rose gold. It's just such a beautiful mix, and the sparkle on this custom mix is absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to get full coverage on the bottom of my tumbler here, and then we're going to tilt the tumbler at a little bit more than a 45-degree angle. And then I'm going to very lightly tap my glitter shaker here, aiming at the bottom corner of the tumbler. So I'm aiming for that very bottom rim there while my tumbler is angled at a 45-degree angle, and I'm just gently tapping. Take your time, do not get impatient. Just do little by little here, okay? We want to be very careful. We want to get very light coverage against the side of our cup here. Obviously, you guys saw earlier we're doing full coverage on the very bottom, but on these sides here, on the edges, we're doing very light coverage for now. So here's what we should have, okay? And we're going to do the same thing up here at the top. I'm going to go around the very top rim with no angle on my cup just to get some really good solid coverage up there. And then once I've gone all the way around the very tippy top to get solid coverage for that first like ½ inch, we're going to tilt the cup at a 45-degree angle again. And also same thing, we're going to aim for that very top corner there and just let it cascade down a little bit. See how gently I'm tapping my glitter shaker there? Just very gently taking my time, tapping small amounts of glitter right there at the corner and letting it cascade down. Okay, don't worry if you get some excess glitter in the top of your cup, inside there, or on your cup arm. It's okay, we'll take care of that later. Once we're done, we're going to just tap off the excess with a pair of scissors. I'm also going to go around the top of my cup arm there and just brush off all that excess glitter. I do not want to lose any of this beautiful color. I love it so much. So I'm just going to keep everything nice and cleaned up, brush all that excess off, okay? And then we'll pour the remainder of that glitter back into our little glitter shaker, and then we're going to move on to our next color. All right, so next we're gonna go in with Goddess, which is an absolutely gorgeous gold. What an honor to have this color released with my palette. This is the sister cut to Athena, which if you're a fan of Peachy Olive glitters, you definitely know the magic of Athena. This is just the smaller version of that gorgeous gold mix, okay? And what we're gonna do here is, again, we're going to angle our tumbler at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to very lightly tap in this gold here, still aiming at the bottom corner of my tumbler like we did before. And we're just going to cascade that right in, blending it with the very edge of that pink glitter that we put in earlier, okay? So we're kind of doing like a mini ombre at the edge of this cup. So you want to go very lightly. You want to take your time, okay? Don't angle your cup too much. Don't let it get away from you. Very, very small taps. And we're holding the glitter about 18 inches up from my cup, okay? So we're holding it up pretty high and just very lightly tapping while aiming for the top rim there, okay? When I get to the top rim here, I got a little bolder, and instead of tapping, I just sort of gently shaked my glitter shaker here and did just a very light, gentle dusting into the edge of that pink. So you can see we're starting to get a blend here. All right. I just kind of keep going until one, I start to get a blend that I like, and two, I go down a little further into the middle of that tumbler. Okay. And it's up to you on how far you want this to go into the middle there. After I did the gold, I tapped off all the excess glitter, and then I went back in with Situation and just did a light sprinkling in, you know, around the top and the bottom, just to further our blend there, and also to get a little bit, you know, better coverage with that color. Because remember, when we start, we just do very, very light coats, very light dustings until we can establish a good fade, and then we start to build up coverage from there, okay? So that's all I'm doing here is I'm just building up coverage. With this particular design, you definitely don't need to pack the glitter on. I would say less is more, but look at how gorgeous. Oh, I love it. All right, so once I was done with my glitter, I just tapped off all that excess glitter. And then instead of hanging this upside down on my rack to dry, I'm actually going to let this dry on my cup turner because there's all that space in between. There is a possibility that the glitter would just start to migrate down if we were just going to hang this upside down to dry. So we do want to keep this in motion. I just let it turn on my turner for about an hour and a half or so before I turned it off, and I didn't epoxy over this until it had dried for about 2 to 3 hours. All right, and after my glitter was dry, I was ready to jump right into my first coat of epoxy. You don't need to seal the glitter with this particular kind of design. You just need to make sure that you've tapped off the excess glitter pretty well, okay? I've got 30 milliliters of epoxy mixed here, and I'm just going to coat my cup like I normally would. I'm using a fast drying epoxy, so I'll be ready for my second coat in about 2 to 3 hours. I am going to put another coat of the Fast Set epoxy right over the top of this. I'm using Alumilite's Amazing Quick Coat epoxy. So your dry times may vary based on whatever kind of brand or type of epoxy you're using. I'm going to let this second coat dry for at least 4 to 6 hours though before we move on to the next step. Our next step will be doing our routine sanding. So I want to make sure that it's really, really dry before we move on to that. For my sanding on this cup, we're just doing our normal routine. Situation, the pink glitter that we used is kind of a chunkier mix. It's like a medium chunky mix, I would say. So you are going to have some rough edges. If you find that you're having to sand quite a bit at this stage, you might want to just go for a third coat because you are going to have quite a bit of pokey bits. But remember, if you are sanding at the second coat, don't sand down too far because we are talking about metallic glitters here and you do risk sanding off the color on your glitter. So just be mindful of that. You'll notice that I did aggressively sand my bottom rim here because again, this is, you know, kind of a rough go with the chunkier glitter. Anyway, once we were done with our sanding, I rinse it off with some dish soap and water, and we're ready to move on to our decals. So for my decal today, I've already got it cut and weeded. All I did was type out this quote in Cricut Design Space and also offset it in Cricut Design Space. Super simple. Once we've got everything cut and weeded, I'm just going to layer it up with my transfer tape, kind of eyeballing it. And then we'll smooth it out with my vinyl scraper. Then you'll want to put this face down on your craft mat or your table, whatever. And you want to loosen your decal from that paper backing before you go to transfer it onto your tumbler so that everything transfers without any kind of drama. Okay, this is also going to help with any vinyl bubbles that you get and things like that. A lot of people have tried my transfer tape that I use and they say it doesn't pick anything up. It's not supposed to be super sticky. You don't want to pull up when you're transferring. You want to pull back with your paper backing first, okay? If it's too sticky, it's going to lift up your vinyl after you apply it to the tumbler and then cause like air bubbles and things like that. So that's why I use this particular transfer tape and I really like it. However, you do need to make sure that you loosen your decal from the paper backing before you transfer it onto the cup. I hope that all makes sense, okay, because I have gotten some feedback on this transfer tape and I just want to make that statement. All right, so once we're ready to go, I'm going to position it on the cup. Make sure you got your ruler so you can measure twice, so you just have to cut once, okay? And then I used a piece of blue painter's tape today to anchor one side of my decal while I measured and got everything positioned. And then using the hinge method, I'm going to apply my decal to the cup. So for the hinge method, you're going to just loosen the paper backing off of one side of your decal first, usually like halfway, and then we'll just snip off that excess paper backing, lay our decal down on that one side, then we'll move on and repeat that same process on the other side. It looks like I'm struggling to loosen my paper backing from that decal today. I am. So I don't know why this vinyl was giving me so much grief, but normally it's not that much of a hassle for me, but whatever. You have good days and bad days. Cal says, grow through what you go through. One of my patrons suggested this quote for this tumbler, and I thought it was such a cute idea. The font that I used is Strong Girl from Creative Fabrica. Creative Fabrica is a great resource for crafters. You guys, they have over 3 million graphic designs, thousands and thousands of fonts. I've partnered with Creative Fabrica to bring you 1 month of full access to all designs for just $1, and that is all access, no limits, with commercial use. After your first month, it'll renew at $19 a month, which is still way cheaper than the normal price for this all access service. You can find a link below on how to sign up. All right, and so now that we're done with our decal, I'm ready for my final coats of epoxy. So my first final coat is 20 milliliters of Amazing Clear Cast, just the regular formula, and I let that dry for about 4 to 6 hours. And then right over the top of that, I went in with my Alumilite Amazing Clear Cast Plus. The Amazing Clear Cast Plus formula has enhanced UV stabilizers, which will help with yellowing over time. So I always recommend using that for a final coat. I don't talk about that a lot in my videos, but anytime I'm doing a design with like white or, you know, a lighter background, I always try to use that for my final coats of epoxy so I can keep those colors bright and white for a really long time. You guys, so that's it for this video. Kind of more like an inspiration type video than a tutorial, but we did drop a lot of tips and tricks in this one. I'm curious to see what your favorite colors were from the Flynn Sisters palette. If you were lucky enough to get one, let us know in the comments section. And if you haven't already, please be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. I upload new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. And a big thank you to all of our Flynn Sisters exclusive members. Thank you for your pledge. Your support means the world to our channel. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.